Hey, I'm Mark. Good morning. Let's go. We got work to do. Yeah? I was wondering, if I stand close enough to you, I can hear the ocean. All right, let's go. Get in here. Close the door. Why? Because I'm a history teacher, and I'm going rogue. So here it comes. The Democrats got the goods on President Trump and have started impeachment hearings to investigate his wrongdoings. For many Dems, it is a slam dunk. To quote the great American thinker Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. Not that I'm a partisan, or am I? But there have been two previous attempts to impeach a president, and neither of them worked out very well. Let's look at the impeachments of President Andrew Johnson and William Jefferson Clinton. Let's go rogue. The process of impeachment is laid out in Article 1 of the Constitution. Important note, don't be the uneducated American ignoramus that thinks impeachment is kicking someone out of office. Impeachment is a formal charge against a government official. We think president, but scores of other officials have been impeached throughout U.S. history. 15 have been federal judges. 8 were convicted. Secretary of War William Belknap was impeached and resigned before the trial. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5 of the Constitution gives the House of Representatives the sole power of impeachment, the power to bring a charge against an official for a high crime or misdemeanor. If a majority of the House agrees, then the official is impeached, and she goes to trial, not kicked out of office. Once the House has decided on impeachment, the Senate now hears the case. Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6 of the Constitution says that the Senate acts as the jury in an impeachment case. A 2/3 vote of the Senate is required to convict the official and have them removed from office. Many think that Richard Nixon was impeached, but he resigned in 1974 under pressure from his own Republican Party before he could be impeached by the Democratic-controlled House. The first president to be considered for impeachment was James Buchanan in the 1850s. He is seen by many as the worst president in U.S. history. It was under his watch that the South pulled further and further away from the Union, and finally, South Carolina seceded before the end of his term. That was not the reason that the House considered impeaching him. There had to be a high crime or misdemeanor. Before an impeachment vote, a commission was created to investigate the Buchanan administration to determine that Buchanan had not done anything toward impeachment, but that his was the most corrupt administration since the adoption of the Constitution in 1789. The first president to actually be impeached was Andrew Johnson, Abraham Lincoln's vice president. As the Civil War was winding down in 1864, Lincoln, a Republican, was running for re-election. He wanted to bind the wounds of the country and bring the South back into the Union with malice towards none. And to this end, Lincoln had a Southerner, a Democrat, be his vice president, Andrew Johnson from Tennessee. There were two forces at work in the United States government at the time. Lincoln's more moderate route to bring the South into the back was challenged by the radical Republicans in the House of Representatives. In the House, all seats are up for each election, and many radicals were elected in 1864. These men wanted the South to pay for their rebellion. Abolition was not enough. They sought complete destruction of the Southern way of life, Leonard Skinner included. Play Freebird! The radicals fought Lincoln every step of the way. Then Lincoln was assassinated. Was it Tecumseh? Andrew Johnson moved into the White House. Johnson, a Southerner, a Democrat. Oh, what betrayal would he bring? The radicals moved to get rid of the president. They passed the Tenure in Office Act, saying that the president could not get rid of a cabinet member without the approval of the Senate. Lincoln's, now Johnson's Secretary of State, William, hey, let's buy Alaska, Seward, was a radical like the Republican majority in the House and butted heads with Johnson since day one. Then it happened. Johnson fired Seward, and the wheels of impeachment started turning. The radicals in the House, more than a majority, voted to impeach. Did that mean Johnson was gone? No. Only criminal charges were brought. The trial had to take place in the Senate. Lawyers for Johnson argued, rightly, that the Tenure in Office Act was unconstitutional. The radicals in the Senate would have none of it. but there were fewer radicals in the Senate. Remember, senators serve a 6-year term, so there were still those in the chamber from before the start of the Civil War, not a bunch of recently elected radicals. And when it came time to count the votes, the Senate fell 1 vote short of the 2/3 needed to convict. The Johnson presidency was saved. The radicals, on the other hand, their agenda was slowed, and the moderates took control of the Reconstruction agenda, the rules dictating the terms of the South's reentry into the Union. The South's old guard remained in power, and we got 100 years of segregation, Jim Crow, the Ku Klux Klan, and lynchings. All right, so the next president to be impeached was William Jefferson Clinton. There was always a dark side to Bill Clinton. A cloud always hung over him. Allegations of womanizing and affairs went back to his days as governor of Arkansas. That's where the case actually began. Bill Clinton was elected president in 1992. And during the campaign, a number of women alleged that Clinton sexually harassed them. Then, as governor of Arkansas in the 1980s, Hillary Clinton referred to the continued allegations as bimbo eruptions. But as long as the Democrats controlled the House of Representatives, no one was willing to look into the stories. During the 1994 midterm elections, though, under the leadership of House Minority Whip Newt Gingrich, the GOP gained control of the House and the Senate. And Gingrich became Speaker of the House. The Republicans then appointed a special counsel to investigate a real estate deal that the Clintons were involved with in Arkansas, Whitewater. The investigation remained quiet for quite some time until just before the 1996 presidential election. During the course of the investigation over a real estate deal in Arkansas, sexual harassment charges reappeared, along with a new charge of sexual misconduct in the very Oval Office between the president and a 20-year-old intern named Monica Lewinsky. The Republicans now went on offense. Rather than be able to push his own agenda, Clinton had to answer to the allegations. I did not have sex with that woman, Ms. Lewinsky. He then made the mistake of lying under oath to a special prosecutor. With the 1998 midterm elections on the horizon, Gingrich believed that the Republicans could get an even stronger hold on Congress. But rather than hurting the Democrats, the Clinton spin doctors went to work, making the normally prudish Republicans look like they were conducting a sexual witch hunt, and the Democrats circled the wagons around the president. Gingrich suggested that the Republicans would gain seats in the 1998 election because of the Clinton affair. But instead, the Democrats won a 5-seat advantage in the House in 1998. Gingrich took responsibility for the loss and resigned. The Republicans next elected Louisiana Representative Bob Livingston to be Speaker of the House. As the allegations against Clinton continued to spin, noted pornographer Larry Flynt announced that he would give $1 million to any woman that could prove a sexual affair with any Republican in Congress. A few days later, Bob Livingston went to the front of the House of Representatives to announce that he had had an affair and he was resigning. He then made the bold proclamation that if Clinton had any dignity left, he would resign as well. But there was no quitting Clinton, though. He and his allies had just driven 2 GOP speakers of the House out of office. GOP? Oh, that's Grand Old Party. That's the nickname for the Republicans, even though they're not as old and have fewer members than the Democrats. No, nobody's going to know what you're saying if you say GOP. No, don't. You're an idiot. It seemed that Clinton would single-handedly destroy the Republican Party and get a little bit on the side with members of the intern staff. After Livingston was deposed, the Republicans chose Dennis Hastert of Illinois to be Speaker of the House, believed to be a Boy Scout, and he wasn't an actual Boy Scout. It's a metaphor. Someone like a Boy Scout, with no blemishes on his record. It was later revealed in the 2010s that he was abusing kids at a wrestling camp he used to run in Illinois. Jeez, Lou. Anyway, under Dennis Hastert, the Republicans regrouped and went back on the offensive, bringing charges against the president, 2 counts of perjury, lying to the special prosecutor, and 2 counts of obstruction of justice. Holding a majority in the House, the Republicans had no trouble getting the vote for impeachment. The whole political world seemed to stop as the trial opened up in the Senate. The Democrats argued that the affair was a bad thing, but it was not between him and the American public. It was between him and his wife. The Republicans countered that he was not being impeached for the affair, but for the perjury and the obstruction of justice. The Democrats counted that the crime was bad, but was not what the Constitution called for, a high crime or a misdemeanor. It did not rise to an impeachable offense, they said. Just before the final vote was to be taken, the Republicans looked at the public opinion polls and decided to vote not guilty. Bill Clinton was impeached, but he was not found guilty for the crimes for which he was impeached. On the other hand, the Republicans lost the battle for public opinion. The public felt that they were the sexual deviants, coming off as conservative Bible-thumping prudes on the one hand, while at the same time prying into the private life of the chief citizen. Two prominent Republicans were removed from office, and their congressional majorities took a hit. On the other hand, Bill Clinton, buoyed by the polls after surviving the impeachment trial, he went back to work on his own agenda, and he left the White House in 2001 as the most popular Democratic president since John F. Kennedy. Careful what you wish for. Hey, speaking of wishes, Bill Clinton was hanging out in the Oval Office and came across an old lamp. He rubbed it, and a genie popped out. The genie gave him one wish. After a few moments of thought, the president pulled down a map of the Middle East and said, all these countries here don't get along. There's war here, there's war here. These refugees are here and terrorists over here. I wish for peace in the Middle East. The genie looked at the map, then back at the president said, hey, you're joking, right? President Clinton looked at the genie again and then said, you know, people think my wife is a horrible, screeching, scheming, arrogant, angry, unlikable person. Genie, I wish that my wife would be a more likable person. The genie rubbed his chin and looked at the president and said, hey, let me see that map again. Hey, thanks for coming by. I hope you had some fun, or you learned something, or you did both. Like and subscribe if you did. Share this video on Facebook or Twitter. If you see this on Tinder, remember to swipe right. I don't know what that means. I want to thank my producer, Casey Moulton. And I also want to thank Mr. Brent Allen for letting me borrow his studio up here on the campus of Columbia High School. I had fun, but I won't quit my day job. Remember, I'm Mark Haggard. I'm a history teacher, and I hope to go rogue with you again real soon. Rogue.